Hello and welcome to another review of a film that I've watched on Mubi. This time I'm reviewing the 2018 film Piercing, directed by Nicolas Pesce. This is my review. First thing to say is that there are spoilers in this review. This is a film which has interesting twists and turns in it, and so it may be worth watching the film before you hear anything about it. Right from the opening credit, I loved this film. It's got a retro presentation, the colours, the graphics, the crackly sound. Having grown up as a teenager in the 70s and going to the cinema, at that point, it was really nostalgic and kind of set a certain mood. And I really liked that start to the film. It kind of had me instantly interested. I notice scrolling down in the Mubi webpage that on the film that some people are quite critical of it, as if it's cliched and as if this genre really exists and what Pesce does in this film has been done before. I don't know this genre very well, so for me this film seemed quite original and enjoyable. So I was interested from the start. What I would say is that this really isn't my genre of film. I noticed in the opening credits that it mentioned prosthetics, and I kind of knew that this film may have some difficult things to watch in it. And when I saw the prosthetics, I thought, oh, right, we're definitely going to see some simulated unpleasant scenes. This film is really dark and grubby and sick, and I'm very sensitive, and I don't really enjoy this type of film normally. It's not something I'd seek out. However, I can appreciate a film like this when it's well made and it's not full of gratuitous violence and sex. I think it's whether it's gratuitous that's important to me. And I do feel that this film has the balance right. There are some things that are really unpleasant to watch, but they're really well done. It's good that I knew they were prosthetics. And it doesn't need to show you too much. There's horror in the suggestion and threat as much as there is in actually showing you too much violence and abuse. So I think it actually worked really well. I think this was a film that was perfectly fine for me to watch and enjoy. There are big surprises in this film and twists and turns. And I kind of, from reading the Mubi description, I kind of knew that, it wasn't going to be just straightforward from the start. But it was still very surprising. You don't see what's coming. I won't say any more about that, but in case you haven't seen it yet. But it's very enjoyable, the twists and turns. What it does do, it kind of bounces back and to between them. At times, both are the perpetrator and victim. And I kind of like that. You never really know who you're rooting for in this film. There's real ambiguity about the characters. And, in the end, both of them perhaps want to die, or at least have the fantasy of the other one hurting them so much that it would kill them. And that's kind of interesting and keeps you on edge. There's something interesting about buildings in this film. It keeps showing you shots of buildings and they look really interesting. And I think she makes a comment about buildings at one point, about loving seeing the buildings. And in the closing credits, there's lots of shots of the camera scanning up buildings that are obviously impossible because it just keeps going and going. And then the closing image is just all these buildings kind of slotted together in a jigsaw. And I just thought this was strange. I kind of noticed it throughout the film, but afterwards I did read that all the buildings are made with models, so that's quite interesting. It reminds me a little bit of Roy Anderson, who uses models in a similar way, and I think perhaps that added to the air of that this is a real fantasy world. This is people living not in reality, living in a created fantasy world. There was one loose end that I was kind of slightly just left uncertain about, that I think I kind of had the feeling that I was being led to almost a happy ending. I mean, it's wrong to describe it as a happy ending, but this is almost a kind of love story with a kind of happy ending of two people finding fulfillment. But I couldn't help feeling sorry for the wife. There's ambiguity around the wife about how much she knows or not, but she's definitely left at home looking after the baby, and so I kind of thought about her at the end as we're kind of left with this almost ending that seems to kind of suggest that there is some fulfillment. In conclusion, I really enjoyed this film. It's not my type of film, but I did enjoy it. It's a really well-made film. It's only 70 minutes. It passed very quickly and it was entertaining. It was nightmarish and terrifying, which normally I wouldn't like in a film, but it really worked and kept me on the edge of my seat. So I would really recommend this film. Next, I'm reviewing the Celine Sciamma film Tomboy from 2011. See you next time.